wrong, but this is how things are working.
Jeff, I mean, the other thing about this reporting is that the president was about to fire Mueller for something that turned out not to even be true. I mean, that there was no subpoenaing of his bank records at Deutsche Bank, if he even had bank records there. What does that say to you about how sensitive he is about all of this?
Well, it says that, he is deeply worried about his personal finances being looked into. He has invented this standard that there is some red line, as he said in this interview with the Times several months ago. But this red line is not some sort of legal concept. It is a personal indulgence. It is a personal imagined rule that the president came up with. And, fortunately, I guess, for the world, his lawyers checked out that the subpoena never even happened. So this crisis was forestalled, but we seem to be heading for another one, this time aimed at Rod Rosenstein, at least initially, instead of Bob Mueller.
Yeah, I mean, Carl, just in terms of the reporting that the president, is considering firing Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, do you feel like we're on the verge of a Saturday night massacre here? Because what would be the point of firing Rosenstein if it's not in order to have some sort of impact on Mueller and the investigation?
We're in a constitutional crisis. The President of the United States has made clear to those around him, those who are closest to him in the White House and among his friends, that he is determined to shut down this investigation. And the moment he has chosen to actually act on it, apparently, is when the special prosecutor and other prosecutors have gotten hold of his lawyers' computers, which have perhaps evidence of real conspiracy between the President of the United States and others. Or there could be exculpatory information there if, as the President maintains, and few even around him believe that there is no there and that this is really a witch hunt. We have a President of the United States willing to risk a constitutional crisis for this nation so he can avoid legitimate investigation and letting the facts roll out the way they ought to the end of an investigation. And if it's a witch hunt, there is plenty of time at the end, and there'd be hell to pay if Mr. Mueller or anybody else, Rosenstein, were conducting a witch hunt. This is no witch hunt. This is about a lawless President of the United States determined to avoid accountability.
Josh, would firing Rosenstein necessarily get what the president likely wants, which is the ability to contain the special counsel investigation?
Well, so there are two prongs here. I mean, the first is he can set additional parameters. So let's take the example of firing Rosenstein. They put in someone in place who's actually maybe going to do the president's bidding and further narrow the scope of what Bob Mueller can do. That's one option. If they dissolve the special counsel completely, that doesn't make the investigation go away. So you send the FBI agents home, you send the prosecutors back to their districts, the case will still continue because the FBI, if they're in possession of information or allegation of a crime, they're not simply going to stop investigating simply because they don't have that process in place.
Wait a second. I think that's overly optimistic about the work of the FBI. If Robert Mueller is fired and this investigation technically still exists, but there's no one in charge of it, Donald Trump wins.
I didn't say he didn't win. What I'm saying is that the counterintelligence agents at the FBI that are working the case, they don't simply go away. And you don't shred your files and, case closed. That actually requires a process. And if there's additional information, if there's an allegation that there's a crime, they don't simply stop investigating. That will
but if
continue.
there's nobody like a Mueller running the investigation, and with the powers that Mueller has and the team that he has assembled, isn't it effectively over? I mean, Jeff, it would be effectively over.
Of course, it would be over. I mean, the idea that the FBI could sort of do this on its own is just it's not realistic. Much as we admire the good work of the FBI, I mean, this is why we have independent counsels and special counsels, is because they have to lead investigations that are independent of the political superstructure of the president's party.
But Jeff, in terms of the impact on Mueller, potentially, of, say, Rosenstein is fired, he would then be, I assume, replaced by the person under him who would then oversee the Mueller investigation. To whatever effect, we don't know.
We're in some uncharted waters, especially because there's no